This week on the Computer Chronicles, the conclusion of our special series on high-tech Hawaii. We'll take you to the Tripler Army Medical Center in Honolulu, a pioneer in the development of internet-based telemedicine. We'll visit Sea Life Park on Oahu, a beta test site for a revolutionary new technology in waste management. This little school on the island of Kauai probably has more computers than the school in your neighborhood. We'll tell you why. And even the florists here in Hawaii are going high-tech. Forget sheep, they're cloning flowers. The final part of our series on high-tech Hawaii coming up next on the Computer Chronicles. Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by PC to PC, the online computer migration service from PC First, moving files, applications, and preferences from your old computer to your new one. And by Upside Events, presenting the Digital Lifestyle Revolution Conference, where people and technology intersect.
If they knew about these dreams...
If you're a computer gamer, you no doubt know about the hot new video game, Final Fantasy. Well, the guys who wrote it are based right here in Hawaii. They work with a game developer in Honolulu called Square USA. Digital Island has been an extremely successful internet startup. They built their business here on Oahu and have become a leading supplier of e-business hosting services and convergence media content. But despite the many civilian high-tech success stories here, the military side of high-tech is never far away in Hawaii. And one of the most exciting internet-based technology solutions is being developed right here at Tripler Army Medical Center. This is eHealth, a telemedicine project, which is the brainchild of Dr. Donald Person, Chief of Pediatrics at Tripler and a passionate believer in using the internet to solve healthcare problems. Most of the patients being treated through the eHealth system are Pacific Islanders, scattered throughout hundreds of very remote locations. So access to the expertise at Tripler is critical for getting them needed health care. Dr. Person told us about some of the cases he's handled using the eHealth system. The first one involved an infant with a serious hernia.
That was a little 11-month-old baby from Ponape who had trouble breathing, had a barrel chest. When the chest was listened to with the stethoscope, bowel sounds were heard in the left chest. An x-ray was taken. The picture of the baby as well as the x-ray were transmitted here. I was able to forward it to our pediatric radiologist, the pediatric surgeon who takes care of such conditions. Patient was accepted, was here within a week or two, treated definitively, and returned home, restored to health.
Dr. Person is a pediatrician, so most of the cases he sees involve children. This young patient had fallen out of a 2-story building and broken her leg.
The referring physician took pictures of the child in traction and the traction that he had set up. It turns out he's a medical officer, really untrained in orthopedics. I was able, and then he sent these images to me. I was able to forward them to a pediatric orthopedic surgeon who saw that she didn't have enough weight on the traction. The leg was in not ideal position, and there was a question of something under her right heel that could cause complications. He recommended how all those things should be changed. The provider in Ponape took an x-ray. Now that the traction had been increased, the position had been improved, and the fracture site was much closer opposed. And we avoided what would have easily been a $20,000 or more evacuation here to Tripler. She was able to stay at home and not leave her family, and I'm told that she has recovered completely and is well.
While the eHealth system is a godsend for the people living in the Pacific region, it is also an invaluable training tool for the doctors studying here at Tripler.
The conditions of these peoples from the Western Pacific are those that we don't see in the United States anymore. So there are a number of areas. For example, kidney stones are a tremendous problem out here. The problems of tropical diseases, infectious diseases, cancers of the head and neck, gynecologic cancers, and so on. They are often at a very advanced stage in these patients. And so for our trainees, it's the one and only opportunity they're going to get to to develop the expertise needed to take care of these kinds of patients.
This was a case in which the e-health system probably saved this boy's life, thanks to a quick and accurate diagnosis by the doctors at Tripler.
He developed what's called subcutaneous emphysema, where air escaping the lungs got under the skin throughout his entire body, to include encasing his lungs into his abdomen, around his spinal cord, into his brain. And he was sent here again based on the images. We were able to do an emergency tracheostomy. The air dissipated, the tracheostomy was closed, and he was returned home, restored to health in a week or so.
While the main emphasis in the e-health program is on treating children, the doctors here at Tripler are also using telemedicine to treat adults. This was the case of a woman who had developed an immense tumor on her shoulder.
When we saw images of it and x-rays of it, I was able to forward that to the radiologist, to orthopedic surgeons, to an oncologic surgeon, a tumor surgeon. We accepted this case, brought her to Tripler, did an amputation of the tumor and her arm, and it was an osteosarcoma, but there was no evidence of tumor involvement at the amputation site. So she, although she lost her right arm and the tumor, she has been restored to health and should have a normal life expectancy.
The internet-based e-health system being developed here at Tripler for use in the Pacific region can also be applied to rural areas of the mainland United States, which up until now have relied on an inefficient system of video teleconferencing.
It's very hard to get busy practitioners, particularly in a big medical center, together at the same time as the sending site. And so I really think that this is the name of the game. I think in remote areas of the United States, there's no question it'd be very, very useful.
One of the reasons for health problems on these small Pacific islands is poor sanitation. And one Honolulu-based company is working on a technology to solve that problem with an innovative solution for waste management in remote locations. This is Sea Life Park on the eastern end of Oahu. And while the visitors here delight in watching the animals go through their paces, the state government was concerned that Sea Life Park's septic tanks were polluting the grounds and the nearby beach. That was obviously a problem in a state where the economy depends on tourism and a visitor-friendly environment. So a Honolulu company called Best Industries came up with a high-tech solution, the world's first miniature municipal-class waste management system. Nearly a third of all homes in the United States use private waste management systems, generally septic tanks or cesspools, and these solutions have problems.
Well, I think the basic problem with our basic systems of cesspool and septic is that there's very little, if none, treatment going on in the process. And so basically what you're doing is whatever you discharge in your toilets or your sink is going right back into the ground. So, you know, some of us do control our discharges. Some of us throw everything from paint thinner to chemicals. And without any proper treatment, basically what you're doing is throwing it back into the ground, which we're taking water to drink. So it's really not a healthy situation, I think.
Roger Babcock is a professor of civil engineering at the University of Hawaii.
And what can happen then is nitrogen compounds and microorganisms that may be pathogenic, that can cause disease perhaps, can leach also down past the zone of treatment and into what's below, which is oftentimes drinking water, and that's what we're mostly concerned about.
Even when the septic tank itself is working well, you can still have problems with the tank's draining system.
A lot of your traditional system, which is your septic, has a leach field. And these leach fields eventually get clogged. So basically, maybe 10, 15 years down the road, you're going to have to go in there and re-dig this out at a cost. And as you add up the costs 10, 15 years from now, people are finding out that they're spending more than if they went with our type of system.
The high-tech innovation from Best Industries was this miniaturized waste treatment plant called Oasis that has 5 separate chambers which completely treat the sewage to the point where the wastewater can actually be reused. What Best Industries has done with its Oasis technology is turn the waste management business upside down.
But these 5 processes is basically something like what you would have at a central sewer treatment plant. And so what we've been able to do is take a treatment plant the size of a mini city and put it into a modular, smaller system and take it to the site. Instead of the waste going to the treatment plant, we're taking the treatment plant to the waste.
If Hawaii is to be successful in attracting high-tech industry here into the state, they've got to develop a talent pool of skilled knowledge workers. And here on the island of Kauai, they're taking a long-term approach to solving that problem, getting kids as young as elementary school excited about careers in computing. The island of Kauai has one of the most advanced computer training programs in the country, here at Chiefus Kamakahele Middle School. More than 500 brand new Pentium 3 computers for a student population under 1,000. That ratio of 2 students per computer is among the best in the nation, where the average is 8 students per computer. This school also has brand new Sony Vaio laptops, a sophisticated network, and an advanced program for 10, 11, and 12-year-olds who want to learn about the intricacies of the internet. One of the programs here involves participation in a national competition to build a winning website, and the young students here are doing it the hard way.
For our HTML coding, because we don't use editors, the students just use Notepad, which is pretty much on every computer today, and it's just a simple text program. And the students do all of the coding on that for the text part. For the graphics, they use a variety of software like Adobe Photoshop version 5.5. They also are becoming very proficient users with Macromedia's Flash 4, and will be experimenting with some panoramic kind of software too. The more veteran students, the experienced students who participated in the competition last year, they're trying to keep themselves challenged by learning more difficult type of coding, and so they're experimenting with JavaScripting and generating forms that we can use on the website.
While training the computer scientists of the future is one part of Hawaii's strategy to establish itself as a legitimate high-tech center, providing a nurturing environment for high-tech startups is another part of the state's game plan. This is the Manoa Innovation Center just off the main campus of the University of Hawaii. It's run by the Hawaii Technology Development Corporation, a state-sponsored program for attracting and supporting high-tech companies in Hawaii. The Manoa Innovation Center is home to several young high-tech companies. HotU is an internet startup geared to providing services for college students. One of the unique tools at hotu.com is an automatic scheduler that makes it easy for students to optimize a class schedule each semester, taking into account various parameters like class times, days, and the opinions of other students. Another high-tech company housed here in the Manoa Innovation Center is Oceanic Imaging Consultants, a leading global company in underwater research. Using sophisticated modeling software, OIC can see the bottom of the ocean. Services like theirs are used for locating the debris from overwater airplane crashes, such as the tragedy off the New England coast involving John F. Kennedy, Jr. Innovaware is another fast-track high-tech company which grew up here at the Manoa Innovation Center. It provides customer care services for internet companies such as billing and account management. Though Oahu is the main center of high-tech development here in Hawaii, the smaller island of Maui has been one of the most aggressive in terms of courting new high-tech companies. One reason is its young new mayor, James Apana, whose first action after being elected was to go to the mainland and try to find high-tech companies willing to invest in Hawaii.
I jumped on the plane with a few of my directors. We knocked on doors in East Coast as well as the West Coast, knocking on Silicon company doors saying, I'm a new mayor, I'm exciting, I'm new, I want to give you incentives. What will it take to bring you to Maui County? And they said, that's fine, that's dandy, the quality of life is good, there's no traffic. Where are the people I'm going to hire? And I talked about my college on the other island, on Oahu. I said, that's fine, but it's quite a bit away. I talked about Maui Community College and all that they have done, and they said that's fine, it's not quite good enough.
There was some interest in Maui, but Mayor Apana did not want to turn his island into a body factory, where the people of Maui would nominally work in high tech, but with low-level, dead-end jobs.
A lot of people offered us call centers here in Hawaii. It's something I, as a mayor, decided that's not what I wanted for my community. I could not see we building a large factory or telephone room, 300 employees taking a steak knife order, and at the ring of the bell, 300 employees would come in and 300 would come out, and my roads would be all congested. When you get hired to be a phone operator, you're at the height of your career. This is not the type of industry I wanted. I wanted more of the technical or the more creative side. It fits our community better.
Maui is one of the premier leisure destinations in the world, so perhaps more than anywhere else, it has to counter the perception that no one takes work seriously here because of the laid-back vacation atmosphere.
In many other different type of industries, being a leisure state or a vacation state is a negative. For us in the high tech, we took something that was a negative into a positive. We told the companies, imagine your creators, the creative people. They're young, they're energetic, they're outdoors people. They can go windsurfing in the morning, they can go surfing, and in 10 minutes they'll be in the office working. And they can work late at night and go to a nice Pacific Rim dinner. In the mainland, they would have to wake up 5 o'clock, get on that traffic. It's a 2-hour drive to work there 8 hours, and it's a 2-hour drive home. So many of their employees were leaving the company. After 1 or 2 years, they said, I had enough of this. This way they can retain their creative minds and keep them fresh. So it's a positive.
A common theme here in Hawaii is that from an employer's perspective, running a high-tech business in the islands is less stressful than on the mainland because you don't have to worry quite as much about your employees jumping ship.
Here in Maui County, they don't see employees walking across the street and changing company loyalty overnight. I mean, in Silicon, they put restaurants on campus because they're afraid if they go off campus to eat, they may never come back. Here in Hawaii, we have a plantation mentality, a family mentality, where you work with a company, you pretty much you try to retire with them. And this is something that employee loyalty, the mainland firms really like.
Mayor Apana has found a new ally in his efforts to bring high-tech investment to Maui, a Silicon Valley-based company called Digital Enterprises. The company's president, David Frayden, is doing exactly what Maui needs, setting up a venture capital fund focused on high-tech business opportunities in Hawaii.
I think the timing is right, especially with the increase of land values, the decline of a quality of life in the Bay Area, and the internet connectivity. All of these factors have converged to offer a unique investment opportunity.
Frayden says the concern about being able to find qualified high-tech staff in a place like Maui is not really as big a problem as it might seem.
A lot of people want this type of lifestyle, so they've moved here. And for example, they may have gone to work in the hospitality industry because there's no other opportunities for them. So I have a lot of anecdotal information to indicate that that's true, where we have MBAs, masters, PhDs, bachelor degrees in different science and technology management areas. In addition, a number of chief executive officers and chairmen of the board have bought houses here and have retired here. So in addition to not only full-time employees, there's a lot of experienced advice available, and all we need to do is tap into that.
There are some high-tech businesses which might not work in a place like Maui, but Frayden says there are other business ideas which are perfect for this island.
I've got several ideas. One idea is to do marketing research on the internet, about the internet. Can be done any place in the world. This is a good location to do that. Another idea might be content creation for training for e-learning, K through 16, adult education. That could be created here. Another idea is if you have to make phone calls into the Asian market and into the U.S. market for recruiting purposes is another idea. Just in brainstorming with folks the other day, we came up with a half a dozen good ideas that one can think through, and those are the kinds of companies that we're looking for to fund.
The state of Hawaii is trying to help people like David Frayden succeed here with a variety of incentives. One is a very attractive tax package.
There's a stock option exemption benefit, which if you're a resident of Hawaii, which means that you live here 6 months or longer each year, and you have stock options that are qualified, when you exercise them, you do not have to pay state tax. And so that's, I think, a pretty good advantage for someone holding millions of dollars in stock options.
The various state tax benefits have brought small startups into Hawaii, among them Redline Media, an animation and gaming company that relocated here from the Midwest.
The fact of the matter is, in the last 2 years, the legislature has put together some very compelling reasons for people to be here from a financial standpoint. This past April, a couple pieces of legislation were passed. One is that if your product or service is electronic in some form, in other words, intellectual property, that includes databases, trademarks, royalties, licensing, that type of thing, from a state perspective, that's now tax-free. You will not pay state taxes on the income from that. On the other side of the coin, if you and I have a great idea for a product or service and someone invests $1,000 or more into that idea, if they make $1 million and we become the next Oracle, for instance, they will not pay state taxes on any of those gains. That's very compelling.
Much of the credit for the growth of the high-tech industry in Hawaii goes to its governor, Ben Cayetano, who says tax incentives are not enough to attract high-tech and that Hawaii has to offer more than that.
There are a couple things that they'll find here that they can't find elsewhere. Almost every location or every state provides some tax incentives, and we do that as well. But a few states can match the quality of life that we have here. High-tech people, from what I've found, are the kind of creative people who put in, they think nothing of putting in 12 hours work, but they want to be able to, just walk out to the beach or to do some kind of activity which enhances the quality of life. We have that here, more than any other place, I believe.
In addition to lifestyle, Hawaii is trying to offer other advantages to high-tech companies willing to locate here, like the Manoa Innovation Center in Honolulu, the incubator funded by the state's High Technology Development Corporation. The center offers a variety of support and services to high-tech startups, and apparently with some success.
In 7.5 years, we have about 28 graduates, and we have 28 current occupants, 40,000 square feet of leasable space. And we've had some really successful companies. One, the notable one, of course, Digital Island. They were here when they were very small, and then moved out as they got funding and got bigger. We've had another very successful company called Aspect Technology, which was acquired by Microsoft several years ago.
One possible concern for high-tech companies thinking of moving to Hawaii is the labor environment. Hawaii has traditionally been a very strong union workplace, while the high-tech industry has thrived on a very non-union mentality. But Governor Cayetano doesn't see that as a problem for high-tech in Hawaii.
I don't see a problem. I think that the nature of the people who are in high technology is one, they're independent people. They are probably not inclined to belong to labor unions. They're very creative, and I think that the makeup of the high-tech industry here, even right now, is one where you don't find the unions really involved.
Perhaps the best example of blending traditional Hawaii with high-tech Hawaii is this nursery on the Big Island. For years, as part of its agricultural past, Hawaii has been one of the top 5 states in the country for growing and exporting decorative plants and flowers. Up until now, it's been a more or less old-fashioned business. Computers and the internet have changed all of that. To the casual consumer, a plant is a plant and a flower is a flower. But when you're in the business of selling plants and flowers, you learn that to be successful, your plants have to be perfect and have something called good conformation.
Conformation is very critical when you're trying to get the best presentation of a blooming anthurium plant or any other blooming plant. We want something that is upright. We want something that where the flowers rise above the foliage. You want it to be floriferous.
If you think growing flowers is an old economy business, you are wrong. That was the past.
We would just go out and collect plants, top cuttings, stick them back into the ground in an environment that was conducive, and we'd be in business if we could collect enough plants. Now, in the propagation end of things, we it was very primitive. It's referred to as vegetative propagation, and it's something that has been going on since biblical times.
You've probably heard of Dolly, the cloned sheep. Well, cloning has come big time to the horticultural industry in Hawaii, where they now clone plants because it is a more efficient way to create perfect flowers compared to the methods of the good old days.
At that time, if you had one brand new, very precious new variety, it would take you 25 to 20 years to have enough to fill an acre of planting material. Today, using cloning technology, we can do that and accomplish that of 25,000 plants per acre within a period of 3 years.
Not only are florists using cloning to create their products, they are increasingly using the internet to sell them, direct to consumers, and for a very good reason.
The wholesaler, the distributor, they tend to focus on price. The consumer focuses more on quality and service response, dependability, communication capacity or ability, and this is why the internet market is getting to be very, very attractive to entrepreneurs in the horticultural business from Hawaii. The response from a wholesaler is one of price. The response from Mrs. and Miss America is, how beautiful is it? How beautiful it is. And a first experience with that consumer translates to maybe a lifetime or a long-term relationship.
Despite some notable successes in nurturing high-tech companies in Hawaii, no one here thinks that this island paradise will ever become a major technology center, but they do think there is a lot of opportunity for high-tech growth in the 50th state.
I think Hawaii, many high-tech companies have found, is really kind of a diamond in the rough for companies which want to do business in Asia and the Pacific, for companies who think that it's important for their employees to go to a place where they have good engineering schools, good technology infrastructure, and a great quality of life. Hawaii is the place. We don't think Hawaii will become a Silicon Valley, and I don't think we want it to become a Silicon Valley, but we think that Hawaii can become a place where high-tech can be very, very successful, and already we have people who have found that out.
That concludes our look at high-tech in Hawaii. For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Stuart Chaffee. Computer Chronicles is made